Alright, so now I'm going to go over part 2. So here we go. Also, make sure I told you guys this, but make sure you read how they want the answer. So in simplest radical form and rounded to the nearest tenth. Okay. So, and you have to show all your work. So there you go. This problem was 3 points. This one was 3, and these both were 2 to give us a grand total of 10. Alright, here we go. So, my formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Hopefully you knew that going into this test. So, I'm going to label my sides a, b, and c, so then I know where to plug it in, okay? C is always the longest side or the hypotenuse, or the one diagonal from the 90-degree angle. Okay, so a squared, so square root of 7 squared plus x squared or b squared, whatever you wanted to plug in there, equals radical 19 squared. Alright, so if we ever have something under the root symbol and we square it, they then cancel out. And if you do not believe me, we can do square root of 7 squared. So even you guys had your calculator, so you could have typed that in to get 7, but I've told you guys that, so you should know that. And then this would be 19. Alright, I need to get x squared by itself, subtract 7 from both sides, and we get 12. So now we have to square root it to get x by itself, and we would have x equals 2 radical 3, and then, or we would have x equals 3.5. There we go. Over on this one, I kind of helped you guys set it up because it is a more difficult problem. So both of these, since they're the same length, they're going to be labeled by the same letter, okay? And this one is C. So we have a squared plus a squared equals c squared, which is ultimately 2a squared equals 8 radical 2 squared. Alright, so whenever we work these out, it was important that you guys had those parentheses so then you remember to distribute it to both items, okay? So if you got this one wrong, it's probably because you didn't do the squared properly, okay? So this distributes to both terms, and we would get 8 squared times 2 because root and the exponent cancel. So we end up with 64 times 2, which is 128. Got to divide by 2 to get that a squared by itself. And we end up with 64. Square root of that is 8. So in this situation, we didn't have to write this in simple radical form because it simplifies to 8. Okay. Alright, so here we go. A squared, or 9 squared plus 16 squared equals c squared. 81 plus 256 equals c squared. If we add those together, we get 337. Got to take the square root, and we end up with, if you try to simplify that into radical form, it does not simplify, so c equals radical 337, or c equals 18.4. So round those, and that would both be feet, but I did not count off if you did not label that. Okay. Alright, next here, so a plus b squared equals 20 squared. So make sure you read to see what you're missing. So distribute that to both, and I end up with 100 times 3, because 10 squared is 100. Radical 3 squared is 3. Then I end up with 300 plus b squared equals 400. We want b squared by itself, so we need to subtract the 300. Take the square root, so then, because we're solving for b, and b equals 10. There we go. Okay. Alright. This one was out of 9 points, and I got 3 points for each problem. Because it says to draw a picture, so you got a point for drawing the picture. I didn't judge you on how the picture looked. I just made sure that you had it in the correct spots, okay? Yeah. And it says show all work, and then round to the nearest 10th, okay? It says include labels, but to be honest, I did not count you off if you didn't. Okay, so here we go. We have a telephone pole that is 25 feet tall with a support wire of 30 feet that runs from its top to the ground. So, my drawing was the telephone pole, which is 25 feet, and then we have a support wire that runs from the top to the ground. And it wants to know how far the pole is from the wire. So, this is a little bit longer, of 30 feet. And we need to figure out what this is. Okay, you could label it X, you could have labeled it B or A, whatever you want to label that, okay? There we go. And so this is my A, B, and C, because that is my longest distance there. So 25 squared plus B squared equals 30 squared. Ooh, 275, my bad, I wrote it backwards. And then B would then equal 16.6 feet. Alright, so there you go. Now it says, what is the perimeter? So once I find this missing length, I then need to find the perimeter, okay? So I did count off a point if you did not do that, okay? So the hypotenuse, so it tells me my longest side is 25, and then one of the legs is 15. So, could have been this one, maybe it wasn't. We'll find out, okay? So, here we go. We have 15 squared plus B squared equals 25 squared. We gotta square root that, and we end up with B equals 20. Alright, I'm not done. So once the perimeter, so I need to take 20 plus 25 plus 15, and I would get 25, 15. 60 meters is the perimeter there. Okay, so I did count a point off if you missed that. Okay, now here we go. The lawn in the front of SLMS is the shape of the rectangle that is 20 yards wide and 12 yards long. And then we need to find that hypotenuse, okay? So then it says, how much shorter is your walk if you walk diagonally rather than along the two sides? So here we go. First we need to figure out what that length is, okay? So we have 20 squared plus 12 squared equals C squared. 400 plus 144. Add those together. 544 equals C squared. C equals 23.3. I'll be honest with you guys, I did not read the second part of this, so if you got that, you got the 3 points, and what I did do was if you solved to see how much longer, or how much shorter the walk is, so you would take 20 plus 12, because that's that walk's distance, you get 32. And then you want to see how much shorter this is. So we need to subtract this from that. You get 32 minus 23.3. And you get 8.7 yards shorter. So if you had that, you then got a bonus point, and that is written on your test. So I added that somewhere else on your test if you missed a point, okay? So a handful of people, if you got this part and missed that, I added the point there. If not, it just went elsewhere, okay? Alright, so here we go. Over here, this is 5 points total. And this one was 2, and then this one was 2 plus 1. So, on this one, I need to find this x first, so then I can find the y. So 3 squared plus 4 squared equals x squared, because that's the hypotenuse. So I have 9 plus 16 equals x squared. My laptop's about to die. Oh no. Okay, I'm good. Okay, so then we end up with 25 equals x squared. Take the square root of those, and x equals 5. So we plug in 5 there. That's one of those Pythagorean triples. So now I have to find this hypotenuse of y. So I have 5 squared plus 12 squared equals y squared. Plug that in, 25 plus 144, and I end up with 169 equals y squared, and y equals 13. That's another Pythagorean triple. Okay, so that's that one. Alright, so here's this. This is 27, 16, 16. Alright, so I need to find this diagonal. So the same process we just did. I'm going to find this first and then go from there. 27 squared plus 16 squared equals c squared, because I have to find that hypotenuse first. And I get, oh gosh, 729 plus 256 equals c squared. And 985, square root that, and c equals 31.4-ish. So, now we plug that in here, okay? And I use that to help me solve for this ultimate diagonal. So, now we have 31.4 squared, which would then equal 985 plus 16 squared equals my new c squared. So I'm going to label that as well. 985 plus 256 equals c squared. I end up with 1241. Square root that, and we get 35.2. So how long is the diagonal? Inches. Okay, so there we go. Now it says, will Cameron's bat fit in the box? Well, his bat is 34 inches, and if this length is 35.2, it will fit, because 34 inches is less than 35.2. So his bat is only 34 inches, which is less than 35.2. Alright, so there we go. And then on to the last one. This was out of 4. We got 2 points for each. So here we go. I'm going to plot our points. So we have 4, positive 8. And then we have negative 3, positive 2. And our distances are 6 and 7. So 7 plus 6 squared equals c squared. 49 plus 36 then equals 85. Square root that, and we get 9.2. So 9.2 would be our answer down there. Over here we have 0, 1. And then we have negative 6. Negative 4. So then if we look at this, this would be 6, and this would then be 5. So once again, we're solving for that hypotenuse, which is c. So 6 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. And we end up with 61 equals c squared. C then equals 7.8. Alright, if you accidentally plotted something wrong and your work was right, I only count off like a half point or 1 point on there. But for the most part, you guys did pretty awesome on part 2. So good job, everyone. And let me know if you have any questions regarding anything on your test.